everyone. I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, Planning for Retirement Income, part 1 in our series on annuity retirement strategies. Well, we're in this first segment and we're talking about planning for retirement income. When I think about all the assets that we're collecting for retirement, most of those assets need to be converted in some way, somehow, some form into actual income that we can use. And especially because longevity is such a big risk in retirement, we're going to need a lot of income for a very long time. When you consider that the Guinness Book of World Records, Jean Clement, lived to 122 years, 164 days. Yes, she's an outlier. But in fact, we could see hundreds and hundreds of new age 100 every day. Willard Scott used to say, happy birthday to a handful of Americans. It's not a handful of Americans anymore turning age 100. It's many people turning age 100, and you could be one of them. Even our last tricentenarian in the United States, Susanna Jones, died at 116. So keep in mind, I need to convert my assets into income. In retirement, it's an income play, not an asset collection play. Now, when I'm thinking about this, it's kind of like a quilt, like I have described here in our book. When you're looking at this, you're trying to put together taxable, non-taxable, tax-free or tax-exempt, and putting it all together, because you're going to need not only diversity in assets, you're going to need diversity in taxable event as well. So I'm looking at the bigger picture and seeing what kind of ideas I've collected. And as I get closer to retirement, I may be pulling back in my mutual fund and ETF holdings. So keep in mind, as I get closer and closer, remember, I saw this huge article by the Prudential where they actually describe the danger zone, where they have a period just before and a period just after retirement. If there's going to be any problems, it's going to be in that 10-year swing, 5 years before and 5 years after. So just keep in mind, you want to be awake to the idea when you're planning for income. And when you're planning for income, remember, if you're talking about qualified plans, you got to hold till 59 and a half. And if you do have qualified plans, you got to start spending them down no later than 70 and a half. There's an exception to the rule. I'll get to that in the 5th segment today. Now, when I'm looking at this, what sources do we have? So let's just go page up a bit. And here are our sources. Right now, our sources are Social Security, guaranteed income, all the way out for life. You're guaranteed as the breadwinner. If you're married, your spouse is also, and a breadwinner also gets their Social Security. That's guaranteed, and that Social Security comes in every single year, and maybe, and I say this maybe, you might get a Social Security bump on your inflation. Remember, in the last 7 or 8 years, 3 of those years we paid no cost of living adjustment. So just keep in mind, it should happen, it might, but it could also might not happen. So guaranteed, and so if you live to, Susanna Jones, 116, they're going to pay Social Security. Remember, Ida Faye Fuller was our first recipient of Social Security. She only put in $24 and some odd change, and she received $22,888 because she didn't die in her 60s. She died at age 100. So, Social Security. Some of you, if you're working for the government, for state, federal, or military, you're going to have a defined pension of some sort. And so you're going to be looking at that. Not many corporations in the United States now still use defined benefit plans. They're more expensive. They have actuarial calculations. It's not so much about the performance of the actual fund. It's now that they have to actually start bringing more money in to supplement it. Most defined pensions in the government sector are underfunded, and there's going to be some issues that we're going to face later on. If you go out to truthinaccounting.org, they not only show you the 20 trillion that we have in debt, but they'll also share the additional 80 trillion plus we have in pension obligations, including, by the way, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Now, most of America, though, is on defined contribution plans, 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, and some Roth, which is not deductible. So a lot of people look at this idea of defined benefit. That money cannot be touched unless you want to have a penalty, and you could take loans against it. I heavily encourage you not to touch your long-term money in a 401k. Whatever your emergency fund is, try to stay away from it. That has to be your last place. I'd go and hit my equity position in my home before I'd ever go to my 401k on that. But once you want to take your 401k, you can do it at 59.5, but you could stall it all the way out to 70.5. And again, I have an asterisk. In the 5th segment, we'll tell you how you can kind of get around some of the required minimum distributions at 70.5. Then there's annuities. There could be qualified annuities or non-qualified. Now, just a little education here on the non-qualified. Now, in the old days, in 1982, under the Reagan administration, we changed the FIFO rules to LIFO rules. We used to be able to pull our money out free, the basis free first, but not anymore. It has to be paid. The only exception to LIFO, last in, first out, is a non-qualified annuity that's annuitized. You're going to get a blended income. Part of it will be basis, tax-free, and the other part will be income or earnings. That'll be ordinary income tax. So sometimes when you're looking at annuities, should it be ordinary income tax or should it be a deferral for ordinary income tax? Because ultimately you're going to pay it, and you have to decide, should I get a deduction in my qualified plan using annuities, or should I stay out of that whole ERISA scenario and only use annuities in the non-qualified scenario? Also, there's personal investments. People have individual stocks and bonds that they're holding. They have real estate holdings, maybe on an individual basis or even in limited partnerships like REITs. So there's a lot of places. And remember, jobs can actually generate income. And more Americans, more baby boomers, are now adopting a hybrid retirement. That hybrid retirement really is targeting people who are still wanting to work and yet moving into retirement and taking some of their retirement income or maybe even some of their Social Security. Just got to remember, that is ordinary income. You know, it's a W-2 or a 1099, depending upon how you're getting paid. But that's another source of income. So you want to be able to patch quilt all these together and divide it into qualified monies, taxable, non-qualified monies, tax deferred generally, tax exempt or tax free, and figure out the taxation, because managing your taxes in retirement is going to be able to either increase or take money off the table for you. Now, I want to go into another section right now and show you what I mean by expanding the idea of planning for retirement. All right, now I want to add a little bit to our planning by thinking about what I'm going to be converting to income. In my view, you have essential spending and discretionary spending during retirement. So I want to be able to match up the spending that I know I'm going to have. First, my obligations and my essential. I'm going to use my Social Security to go ahead and pay that because that's guaranteed and my bills are guaranteed. If I'm still short, I may look at an annuity, which I can own for life. I could even put my wife and myself on it and own it so that it gives me a guaranteed lifetime income I can never outlive. I want to target my annuity and my Social Security to pay essential bills in retirement, as well as some discretionary bills. And what I mean by discretionary is you may be taking vacations, you may be going on a mission trip, things that aren't like really essential, but you like to do them every year. They're part of your budgeting plan. I like to match up guaranteed obligations and guaranteed commitments with Social Security and annuities and take care of those obligations and make sure that they're guaranteed. And remember, you have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan in retirement, it's going to be a very hard time to manage all this, and you may find yourself shorting yourself and maybe even only having Social Security to actually live on. So it's very important to do a plan now before you retire. Decide if you're going to do a little bit of hybrid retirement, a little bit of work, a little bit of retirement, and make sure you do this. And remember, when you're looking at the actual ideas of a plan, you should probably have a 5-year plan, maybe a 10-year plan, and then an overall arching lifetime plan. Remember, more people plan for a 3-week vacation than they do for a 30-year retirement. So it's really your life and your lifestyle. So it's really important to have a plan in retirement and know where your resources for income are going to be coming from. Don't forget to watch our next segment on guaranteed sources of retirement income, part 2 in our series on annuity retirement strategies. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas you hear on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.